So there are 3 risk factors associated with hearing loss and dementia. Number 1, the social isolation. We know that as you start pulling back, and people with hearing loss do, it becomes very difficult to want to stay engaged. And I'll cover that just a little bit more here in a second. Cerebral atrophy is the second risk factor, and then cognitive overload. And I'll just highlight those 3 for you. So social isolation. Even with a mild hearing loss, like Susan said earlier, people with hearing loss are 2 to 5 times more likely to develop dementia quicker, right? What we're looking at is how do we delay it? If it's going to come along maybe by some other factors, your diet, lack of exercise, those kinds of things, lack of social engagement. But we also know that when you're not hearing and you quit going and doing those things, you're home more, you're not getting the physical exercise that you need, you're not getting that social engagement. And then it sort of snowballs. Maybe you have answered a wrong question in front of a group and they laughed and you were embarrassed. Maybe you didn't even understand the topic that was going on. I mean, I've actually had situations where there'll be an entire conversation for 3 or 4 minutes, and the conversation's over and we move on to something else, and somebody might say, oh, how about this? And everybody looks at this person because that is what we just were talking about. And that person's face turns red, their heart starts beating a little faster, anxiety kicks in, and we protect ourselves. We don't want to put ourselves in those kinds of environments, so we stop going to them, right? So we don't want to make those mistakes. We feel left out. One of the things that we ask people when they tell us, I can't hear when I'm at this, at church on Sunday after the sermon, we go out in the hallway and I just can't hear, and so I have stopped going. Well, how does that make you feel? Well, I feel left out. I feel very lonely, right? So, and then that can create the depression and, again, that snowballing effect. Cerebral atrophy. This is about brain shrinkage. We all know that as we get a little older, our gray matter shrinks a little bit. Studies are showing that people with hearing loss, it shrinks at a faster rate. You see, I've got a little illustration there of normal hearing and hearing loss. It specifically affects memory, speech, hearing, and language, that extra brain shrinkage. So that's something that, again, if we're not treating that hearing loss, we can expect that to happen just a little bit faster. Cognitive overload. This is what I was talking about and what Christine was talking about when you're working so hard to try and do something. And in our case, we're talking about hearing. So that I don't embarrass myself and make a fool out of myself, I really want to watch you. I really want to read your lips. I really want to make sure that I understand what you're saying to me, because last time I asked you to repeat, you got really mad at me, and I don't want that to happen again. And if I can't make this all happen, I'm going to just nod and smile and really not have a clue what's going on around me. But when I really want to be engaged, I'm going to leave that conversation. And maybe we discussed the weekend. We talked about, okay, well, why don't we hook up? We'll meet at the restaurant at 3 o'clock, and we'll have a nice dinner. Maybe about 4:15. We probably could leave, and we could all go to the movie. And then you go home, and this is all going to happen on Saturday. You go home, and you're thinking to yourself, now what time did she say we were going to meet at the restaurant? And these are some of those signs that what is it? And it could be hearing loss. It could be because you're working so hard that you're pulling away from other cognitive resources in the brain, like short-term memory, and that information cannot get stored.